Welcome back to History Class with Dr. W and our continuing discussion of American cultural history. In the last few lectures, we've been talking about culture in the 1980s and the prominence of the Cold War in that era. In this lecture, we'll conclude our discussion of those Cold War tensions, which were eased in part by some of the leading musicians of the day. That will bring us into a discussion of another prominent theme in 1980s culture, the MTV Generation. Popular culture played a role in the easing of tensions that accompanied the end of the Cold War. Artists, athletes, and musicians on both sides tended to emphasize the humanity of their colleagues on the other side, and average citizens on both sides hoped to avoid the destruction of a nuclear war. By the late 1980s, the pressures of the arms race were pushing the Soviet Union closer to economic ruin, and new Soviet leader Mikhail Gorbachev, who came to power in 1985, called for perestroika, an economic opening, and glasnost, or opening, calling for greater freedom of speech and expression. In that vein, the United States and the Soviet Union signed a new cultural exchange agreement in 1985, renewing exchanges that had been dormant since the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan in 1979. What followed was an array of exchanges. Among the most prominent, a 1987 tour behind the Iron Curtain by rock star Billy Joel. Touring 6 Soviet cities in July and August of 1987, Joel performed raucous concerts before delirious audiences. Joel's performances won over the crowds and demonstrated that music and culture could bridge the divide between the two sides. Billy Joel was only one of many musical artists of the 80s who benefited from another development, MTV. With the growing prominence of cable television in American households, music television, or MTV, made its debut on August 1, 1981. The first video played was Video Killed the Radio Star by the Buggles. The song is forgettable, but its message was prescient. Leading rock stars from then on had to adapt to the world of the music video, and the stars who leaned into this new movement saw their stardom soar. Among the artists and bands who flourished in the new age of music television were Michael Jackson, Madonna, Bruce Springsteen, Culture Club, Duran Duran, The Police, and Genesis, among many others. Michael Jackson was already a thoroughly established rock star before the advent of MTV. As mentioned in a previous lecture, Jackson and his family band, the Jackson 5, were one of Motown's leading artists. His career with the Jackson 5 started in the 1960s when Michael was just 5 years old. He launched a solo career at the age of 13 and had his first #1 solo hit, Ben, at the age of 14 in 1972. His rise to superstardom and status as the king of pop was presaged by the 1979 smash album Off the Wall, which notched 4 top 10 hits. So even without Thriller and the albums to follow, Jackson would be one of the greatest artists ever. But it was the 1982 album Thriller that took Jackson to the stratosphere. Thriller is the best-selling album in history, generating 7 top 10 hits and holding the #1 spot for 37 weeks. It also was nominated for 12 Grammy Awards and won 8, a record. In addition to the undeniable greatness of the music on Thriller, though, it was the string of music videos accompanying those hits that really elevated the entire album. With each video, it seemed Jackson outdid himself. From Billie Jean to Beat It, teens all over the country tuned in to see Jackson's latest outfit and dance moves. But it was the video for the title track, Thriller, that secured Jackson's legendary status. A short film of 13 minutes long, Thriller raised the bar in terms of special effects, production quality, storyline, and choreography. It is widely considered the best and most important music video of all time. Jackson followed Thriller with a series of other top-selling albums and music videos, notably Bad, Black and White, and Remember the Time. Another artist who fully capitalized on the MTV movement was Madonna. Born Madonna Louise Ciccone in 1958 in Michigan, Madonna moved to New York City in 1978 and began her career as a dancer. Her connections in the dance world led her to a recording career, releasing singles in the early 80s and a self-titled album, Madonna, in 1983, which spawned her first top 10 hits, Holiday, Borderline, and Lucky Star. It was her next album, though, that launched Madonna to new heights. Like a Virgin was the triple threat, a smash single, album, and video. She added to the massive attention the single garnered with a highly suggestive performance at the 1984 MTV Video Music Awards, considered one of the most important performances ever by a female artist. The album became the best-selling by a female artist up to that point, selling more than 20 million copies. The follow-up album did even better. 1986's True Blue spawned 5 number-one singles and sold more than 25 million copies. From that point on, Madonna became one of the most iconic artists of the 80s and beyond, with a string of top 10 hits and a budding movie career as well. Controversy never seemed far behind Madonna either. In January 1989, the appearance of the video for her single Like a Prayer sparked controversy for its use of Catholic symbols such as the crucifix and stigmata, and an element of interracial passion. In the 90s, her career took even more controversial turns, starting with one of the biggest hit songs and dance crazes of the decade, 1990's Vogue. She became a fashion trendsetter, and women have followed her fashion taste throughout her career. Madonna outfits are a staple at 80s parties everywhere, even now. Other artists of the MTV generation spread a more wholesome message. Bruce Springsteen, a working-class musician from the Jersey Shore, built a career in the 1970s and early 80s, singing songs about social conflict, hardship, and a longing for simpler times. Sometimes melancholy, sometimes raucous, his music spoke to many Americans who were neither living the big city life nor enjoying the capitalist boom of the 80s. His 1975 Born to Run became an anthem of that era. But it was 1984's Born in the USA that took Springsteen to new heights. The album spawned 7 top 10 hits and sold more than 35 million copies. The title track, while offering a critique of the poor treatment received by many Vietnam veterans, has become a patriotic anthem deployed at sporting events and political rallies all over the country. Still touring today, Springsteen is one of the top-selling artists of all time, with more than 150 million albums sold. Another popular artist of the 80s was John Cougar Mellencamp, originally just John Cougar, a crossover country artist who had a series of hit songs about the heartland of the country, life on the farm and in small towns, and teenage relationships. His string of hits, including Jack and Diane, Little Pink Houses, and Small Town, found wide appeal with many Americans who were disenchanted with the fast times and perceived lawlessness of the big city. In our next lecture, we'll continue our discussion of music in the age of MTV.